Hi, my name is Caleb. I'm a student physical therapist assistant, and today I'm going to be talking about cross-body syndrome, also known as stratification syndrome. What stratification syndrome is a predictable pattern of overactive muscles with opposite opposing underactive muscles, and that can be broken up into two different types. You have your upper cross syndrome and your lower cross syndrome, and I will be going into what those are, possible exercises for that, and kind of the underlying causes and symptoms with both of those. First, covering upper cross syndrome. Upper cross syndrome is also known as text neck, and that gets the name from how the body presents itself from the weak muscles and the tight muscles. So the head will be pulled back into extension. It also pulls the head forward and away from the body, and the ears will be out in front of the shoulders. The tight muscles will include the pec, major and minor, the levator, which pulls the head back with the suboccipital, and the sternocleidomastoid, which is pulling it forward as well. With those being tight, the opposite muscles will be weak, and those include the trap, middle and lower, the rhomboids, the serratus anterior, longus capitis, and longus coeli. So in the picture you can kind of see this X, which is where it gets its name, upper cross syndrome, because it makes kind of a cross. This can be presented with a few different symptoms, including headache, neck pain, shoulder pain, bursitis, shoulder impingement. It also increases pressure on 4 spinal joints, C1 atlanto-occipital, the C4-C5 junction, the C7-T1 junction, where the neck and the head meet, and then the T4-T5 junction. With added pressure in those areas can cause degeneration over time, as well as degeneration in the surrounding joints. Also, forward rolled shoulders put stress on the glenohumeral joint that causes degeneration, so that you're going to get forward shoulders from the tight chest. How you get all these tight and weakened muscles can either be by poor posture or kind of the sedentary lifestyle. Proper alignment is when the neck is over the shoulders. So you'll have your ear in line with your shoulders. Now the neck in regular alignment supports about 12 pounds of your head, but with each degree of neck flexion increases 10 pounds of additional pressure. Now that I've focused on what upper cross syndrome is, I have some stretches and strengthening exercises to help combat upper cross syndrome. The first muscle group I'll be covering of how to stretch is the chest. The chest can get very tight when we're slumped over in this position because we're not out here, so it just finds a new normal, which is tight. So you can find a doorway, or I'll show you how to also stretch in the corner, but you'll have both your arms kind of making a goal post, 90 degrees at the shoulder, 90 degrees at the elbow, and then you'll kind of lean forward into the doorway, making sure not to lead with your neck, but lead with your chest. Kind of in the middle of the chest. Imagine that rope is pulling your chest forward. And you'll kind of want to sit in that for about 30 seconds, maybe do 2 to 3 sets of that. Or we can use the corner. In here, stagger your feet also for improved balance. But yeah, you'll just be here, and then I'll help stretch your chest. Another variation on this is the single arm chest stretch, which again you find like a doorway or something. And then you'll just put your arm out here and kind of roll forward. Kind of twist your body, angling away from the door frame. And you should feel that here. Or for a more intense stretch, have your arms straight out, angle away. You should feel it in your chest right there. Okay, the next two muscle groups that I'll focus on are how to stretch the upper trap and the levator. The upper trap kind of runs here into the shoulder. The levator runs from the top of the neck kind of down, following the cervical spine. Now, to stretch the upper trap, you'll first relax your shoulders, turn your head to this side, and kind of help to grab onto something to help relax the shoulder underneath the chair, for example. And then you can even apply overpressure with your hand, just ever so gently, for a deeper stretch. You'll want to hold this for about 30 seconds, and again do 2 to 3 sets. Now to stretch the levator, you'll want to first look down and over to the armpit. And again, we can apply slight overpressure on the back of our head, pulling down. Hold this for 30 seconds and do 2 to 3 sets of that. The first muscle I will be explaining on how to strengthen is the serratus anterior, which is weakened in typical presentation of upper cross syndrome. You take something like a PVC pipe that's really light, and the goal here is to kind of punch the ceiling without bending your elbows or wrists. So you're kind of punching up and then resetting back down. You want to hold the up position for about 5 seconds and then come back down. Do 10 to 15 reps and 2 to 3 sets. And then as you further progress, you can add some weight and do the same thing. So here, and then back down. The next muscle group that I will show you how to strengthen are the neck flexors, which include the longest capitis and longest colli. The move that I will be showing you is a chin tuck. Now I have a small towel that I'm going to roll up, and the purpose of this towel is to give a little tactile cue for my head. So a chin tuck will be performed initially laying down to get the feel of it. Now you want to imagine like a string is being pulled from this point in your head, kind of the middle of your head. And you're almost making like a double chin. So laying down, this will look like this. Towel's rested in the same spot as when I was seated. And you're pushing down into the towel, making that double chin, holding for about 5 seconds. This about 10 times for 2 to 3 sets. And then as you start to get the feel of it, you'll move to a seated position. The next muscle that I'll show you how to strengthen is the lower trap. The lower trap is extremely weak in a typical upper crossbody presentation. So what you can do is lay down on your belly, head on the floor, arms out in front of you, kind of making a Y shape. You'll want your thumbs pointed up and your palms facing together. And what you're going to do is raise up the arms, hold for about 5 seconds, and then drop them. Do that 10 times for 2 to 3 sets. And what you're focusing on is squeezing the back, keeping your feet on the floor. That concludes all the strengthening and stretching for the upper cross syndrome portion of crossbody syndrome. Now we're going to move into the lower cross syndrome. Causes of lower cross syndrome will be poor posture, prolonged sitting, a sedentary lifestyle, or if you overtrain, undertrain certain muscle groups. Typical presentation will include tight hip flexors and thoracolumbar extensors. Your weak muscles are going to be the abdominals and the glutes, the glute max, glute med, and glute min. And there are a couple of exercises that I can show you to help correct this as well. The first muscle I will show you how to stretch is your hip flexor. To begin, you can use a bench or a chair. Make sure it's stable. Maybe put it up against the wall. But you'll put one foot up, this toe pointed forward, and you'll lean forward, leading with your hips. Should feel a stretch on the leg that's not bent. So this leg is straight. You'll want to hold that for about 30 seconds and do that 2 to 3 times on each leg. The next thing I'm going to stretch is the quad, which is one of our other hip flexors. And if you have some balance problems, I'd use a wall or a stable chair. And you kind of kick your foot up, hold it with your hand, and you want it close to your body so that it's aligned as if you were standing, pulling back with your arm. Hold that for 30 seconds. Do that 2 to 3 times on each leg. A modified way you can do this is use a bench or a stable chair. Prop up your foot behind you. And kind of the same idea. You want it in line like it were if you were standing. You kind of want to sink into the chair to feel on the front of your leg. Same hold time, same amount of sets on each leg. The next group of muscles I will show you how to stretch is the erector spinae. So in this stretch, you'll want to be on the floor. Carpet would be most comfortable. I have a little padding here. Hardwood might be a little hard on your knees, but you'll want to have your knees under your hips and your hands under your shoulders. And the goal is to round the back and then opposite. Holding each position for about 3 to 5 seconds in a slow and controlled movement, transitioning. You want to do that about 10 times each direction. Making sure your head is following the motion you are doing as demonstrated. That was all the stretching exercises I'm going to show you. Now we're moving on to the strengthening exercises. The first exercise will strengthen your glutes, specifically targeting the glute med. So we'll start in this side position. You want your hips in line with your shoulders and kind of stacked on top of each other, not leaning back or leaning forward. And the goal is to lift up the leg and put it down in a slow and controlled manner, making sure your toes are pointed forward. Should feel that in the back of your butt. You want to do that 10 times for 2 to 3 sets on each leg. And then you can pair this with clams. So you'll bend the knees, keeping your ankles together, opening the knees. Making sure not to roll your body. Your hips are staying stationary. And that is also targeting the glute med. The next exercise that I will cover is to strengthen our transverse abdominis, which helps with core stabilization. Now to start, we're going to lay down on our back. We're going to march. Now in this position, we want to first close the gap between our low back and the floor. So we want to kind of tuck in, hold as if we were putting in a tight pair of pants. It's kind of that same feeling. We're holding that tucking. And then as we're doing that, we're picking up one leg, and then the other one, and then putting it down, and putting the other one down. So start out, if you don't feel like you can hold that position well, you can just alternate instead. But the goal is to squeeze the abdominals, tucking in like we're putting on a tight pair of pants, and do each side 10 times for about 1 to 2 sets. The final exercise I will show you strengthens the glutes, specifically the glute max. So we'll start again by laying down, bending the knees, and having our hands flat on the floor. And we want to pick up our hips off the ground, kind of making a straight board with our hips and our legs, and then coming back down. Now as we're doing this, we're focusing on squeezing the butt, and then come back down. So you want to do this 10 times for 2 to 3 sets. And then as this gets easier, switch to one leg. So that's all the strengthening and stretching exercise for lower cross syndrome. To review, we went over crossbody syndrome, broken up into 2 parts, upper cross syndrome and lower cross syndrome. We talked about how they present normally, how certain muscles are tight, how certain muscles are weak, and kind of how to correct all that. All the exercises do not encompass everything you can do for this diagnosis, but it's certainly a good starting point.